Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli back with another review video, and of course, continuing on with the Christmassy reviews on the weekdays. So that's right, guys. You read the title, and you know what I'm reviewing next. As was clearly teased, I'm sure you guys probably figured it out with what I was teasing / describing. Yeah. And not to mention, this one Christmassy film that is, full of horror and slasher stuff, all that, is celebrating its anniversary. Well, perfect timing, of course, for me to review this. And I'm not reviewing this alone, because joining alongside with me is one of my good friends and frequent review collaborators, Anchorman.
Hello?
Yes, that's right, guys. Both me and Anchorman, we're reviewing from 2015, Krampus. Yes. Anchorman, wouldn't you say that's the correct pronunciation for it, Krampus?
I think so.
Yeah, Krampus, whichever which. I mean, some people would say Krampus, but, for me, I feel like it's Krampus, but, and I'm sure the same would go for any of you guys, but anyways. Yeah, so Krampus, this is a pretty interesting Christmassy film, that it's one of those Christmassy films where there's a lot of horror to it, slasher and all that, violence and such. And, I mean, of course, we've seen that kind of stuff before. I mean, if you're familiar with the Silent Night, Deadly Night films, or if you've heard of Black Christmas, or any others, even if, like, say, there are those that would be set around Christmas, but overall, because, Krampus, this one, well, if you're familiar and aware and know the stories and tales, then you know of the titled character himself. A dark side version of, Santa Claus or whatever. You know the basics. Yeah. But I'm gonna go ahead and go first, because, Anchorman, I don't know about you, but, for me, because, well, for a while, because, of course, I knew about this film for a long time, and ever since, this movie first came out, back in 2015, and, the month of December in 2015, it was quite a big year for movies. I mean, on account of this, Tarantino's, 8th movie, which of course being The Hateful Eight, and most prominently, the 7th Star Wars film. And yeah, Krampus having come out the first week of December, and, I remember, seeing the trailers, and I never got a chance to watch this movie until, well, I did finally sit down and watched it in all of its glory, and for a while I was having a feeling that, I probably was going to enjoy this, and I did, yeah, because with what Krampus has to offer, the film itself, yeah, because it's very interesting. I mean, yeah, because on account of this family we have and what they're like at first, and this one boy by the name of Max wishing that everything was back the way it used to be, everybody at peace and such a big happy family, and when he just gives up the hope and such, and he even wrote a letter to Santa, well, little did Max realize that something was gonna happen in the next 3 days up to Christmas Day, when disaster struck, and yeah, Krampus and his army of minions stepping in, terrorizing parts of the neighborhood, a blizzarding storm, you wouldn't even see a cloud in the sky or the sun, and all these, demonic versions of these, Christmassy figures just going ballistic and attacking their victims, and with what happens to each of the family members, and when things are really getting intense and up to the end of the movie, just, yeah, it's very interesting. But, even though this movie, yeah, as far as I recall, really didn't do that great, it's obvious that this movie has its audience, and me technically being one of them, and maybe the same goes for you, Anchorman, but until we turn over to you, your first thoughts. I wouldn't say that Krampus itself is a bad movie. No, because if anybody is in the mood and if anybody enjoys those kind of Christmassy movies that have horror and slasher stuff to it, then this is one of those movies that is right up your alley. But yeah, just overall, Krampus itself, it's just one of those movies that, that it is what it is, and, not being very whimsical, jolly, or anything like that, because, let's face it, there's plenty of other Christmassy films that are not really like that. On account of, say, the Die Hard films, the first two, that is, because of the action pack that they have, and others that are a bit aggressive and all that. I can think of, say, The Family Stone, which I had reviewed, if you want to go check it out. You get my point. Just, yeah, overall, Krampus, it's quite an interesting Christmassy film for what it is, with the horror to it, and there's quite a handful of comedy stuff to it, because, yeah, it's a horror/comedy film. Who'd have thought, And on account of what goes on in this movie and the ability this movie has to have its comedy, well, because, yeah, on account of some of the cast members that are quite amusing and funny, and I'm sure you know whom they are, just, yeah, and until we get to them further. Alright, but now with the first things I've had to say about Krampus said and done, and out of the way, Anchorman, we'll now turn over to you. What are the first things you have to say about Krampus itself?
I think it's a underrated horror movie. I like the cast of characters. It has more familiar actors in it. And the way Krampus looks, I always thought he looked super terrifying. And I like the twist they do at the end of the movie with Krampus. And it opens the door for other, maybe potential horror Christmas movies.
Yeah, technically it did, but the later Krampus movies that came out after this, well, if most of us know how those turned out, but that's another story. Yeah. Anything else you've got to say?
I think that's it.
Okay. All right, so there you go. Mine was long, but yours was short. No hard feelings, but, All right, but there we go. So the first things that both me and Anchorman had to say about Krampus. Now, with what the first things me and Anchorman had to say about Krampus said and done and out of the way, now, as always, for me, read the description / the story. While the holiday season represents the most magical time of year, ancient European folklore, warns of Krampus, a horned beast who punishes naughty children at Christmas time. When a dysfunctional family squabbling causes young Max to lose his festive spirit, it unleashes the wrath of the fearsome demon as Krampus lays siege to the Engel home. Mom, pop, sister, and brother must band together to save one another from a monstrous fate. But not just them, the other extended family members that come in for this Christmas. All right. Now with reading the description / the story done and out of the way, now let us dive in / break down the film itself. Okay, well, first off, it's always really cool that when sometimes movie logos, they'll be very, themed and such, and yeah, in the case of the Universal logo, it's frozen and such. The words are frozen and all that, going with the setting of the movie. And we get our opening credits, and it's literally, as sometimes we would see at our stores, chaos at a store, people, I guess at the last minute getting stuff for Christmas, while peaceful, happy Christmas songs are playing, especially one from Bing Crosby. But this is a very interesting way to start off our movie, and when we see our first batch of characters, the son / kid character, Max, being played by young MJ Anthony, whom I know best from a previous Universal film that he starred in, one of my favorites, and directed by Jon Favreau, Chef. If you know, you know. So it's really cool. From one Universal film to the next, he ended up in this. Oh boy. And getting the star role. That's good. Good for him. So Max, like, he got into a brawl during an nativity play. Oh, jeez. And his parents coming to break up the fight, and because, you know, someone in the nativity play made some, like, bad comments and was trying to get to Max about Santa and all that, you know. And the parents of Max, Tom and Sarah. Tom being played by Adam Scott, and Sarah played by Toni Collette. Yep. Two good, talented actors, definitely. And Max's sister, Beth, being played by Stefania Levy-Owen. I think I got her first name, but you know me sometimes. Anyways, so if we couldn't tell already, because not the happiest, bright family that you would expect, and around, especially around the time of Christmas. We also get the grandmother / the mother of Max, Omi, and even, yeah, Max calling his grandma Omi. Omi, who speaks German throughout the film, and their subtitles. Omi being played by Krista Stadler. Yep. And if you're familiar with Krista Stadler, talented actress, yep. And you know, out of all the characters for a while, because almost throughout the film, Omi is really the only one that's very calm and peaceful and all that, and you know, besides everybody else in the family, just, yeah, so chaotic, you know? Maybe a little bit of Aunt Dorothy, but until we talk about Aunt Dorothy some more. And yeah, just the family preparing Christmas, not to mention their extended family members are coming for this Christmas, which they're not really looking forward to. And yeah, because keep in mind, they used to be one big happy family, but not really. Things going downhill and such. Even when, like, Sarah, you know, placing up the family portraits, golly, including one where, you know, the parents and the brother and sister there taking a picture with Santa, and in the picture, apparently, the guy playing Santa is staring at Beth in a creepy way. And speaking of Beth, because, yeah, Beth, I mean, she wishes that she would be, you know, spending some Christmas time with her boyfriend, Derek, whom, you know, they FaceTime at one point, and Derek being played by Leith Towers, I think, yeah, that's how his first name's pronounced, but, yeah. And, golly, because Derek has, like, a Christmas-themed, like, weed thing or something, just good lord. And then, sure enough, like, we hear some rumbling outside, and yeah, the extended family members have arrived. And the extended family members being, say, Sarah's sister, Linda, being played by Allison Tolman, her husband, Howard, played by good old David Kochner, and there's also Howie, their two daughters, Howie Jr. being played by Maverick Flack, and Jordan played by Queenie Samuel, and they're basically, like, dressed up as a bit of, like, boys and such, you know? They're made up to look like boys, because the clothing that they're wearing. Oh yeah, and, there's Stevie, the other sister, Howie Jr., the son. Stevie being played by Lolo Owen. And yeah, and then there's also, out of nowhere, because this was unbeknownst to Sarah and the others, that, yeah, Aunt Dorothy stepping in. Aunt Dorothy being played by the late, funny, delightful, talented Conchata Farrell, whom we know best from being in, say, 2.5 Men. I ain't cleaning that up. And a late fellow West Virginian. That's right, because, yeah, she was born and raised in West Virginia, like me. Yeah, so Aunt Dorothy came in unbeknownst to everybody, and, you know, what was Linda supposed to do? This is technically on Linda, because she couldn't say no to Aunt Dorothy when she showed up at the last minute. So, and we also get, you know, the, fourth child of Linda and Howard, and that being little Chrissy. and Chrissy, little baby, baby Chrissy being played by young baby Sage Hunfeld, and the family dog named Rosie, and Rosie the dog being played by Thor. Can I just go ahead and say this? It was very nice and cute that even Thor and baby Chrissy, they got credited in the end credits. That's good to see. All right, but Anchorman, we'll come to you because with what I've talked about so far, the opening and getting to see the family members, and then when the extended family show up, what say you?
The family aspect is alright in this movie. Most of them are familiar to me by the actors, but probably my favorite one is David Connor's character because I remember him from Anchorman.
Yes. Oh, yeah, I mean, David, he's such a great, funny, talented guy, and, I've seen him in more than just, say, what you've seen him in, Anchorman, because he's done so much other great, funny stuff. And anything else to say on the family members, and, again, with what I've so far talked about?
I feel like I've seen the father character. I feel like I've seen him in other movies. I just can't get my hand on it.
Yeah, I have, too. Because Adam Scott, like I said, Adam Scott is another talented actor that's in this that's in this movie, as well as Toni Collette. But I'll continue on because so again, with the extended family members arriving, because not going so great at first. Also, even when say Max, he tries to make a conversation with his cousin Howie Jr., but Howie Jr. just doesn't really say anything, just speechless and just kind of in the zone or something. However, Jordan and Stevie, they do at one point notice, and we can immediately tell by those two that they are, they are full of trouble. In fact, they they make fun and pick on their cousin Max, and when they notice that Max, in his pocket, he wrote a letter to Santa, and oh no, because this can only end well. But to speed things up some, because they would then have family dinner, and still, things not looking too good, and, even some of the conversations that each of them are having, not too bad, but, even, say, when Howie Jr. it's mentioned that Howie Jr. is, going to, do some football stuff, and he'll be getting into shape and such, according to his dad, Howard. And, with what goes on in the kitchen, and on account of Sarah and Aunt Dorothy, and even say at one point when Sarah, then she would then make some creme brulee. If anybody's had creme brulee. Then it just starts to slowly but surely get out of hand when Jordan and Stevie, they try to make fun and just poke at Max and make up a story to get on his nerves about Santa crashing, eating his elves, reindeer, and all that. Golly. And somehow they managed to steal Max's letter to Santa. And what Max wrote to Santa, because we did see him do that at one point, writing a letter to Santa, what he wrote in his letter to Santa was actually some very personal stuff. It's on account of his family, wishing that, things would be better in his family when, in the letter, describing on, say, his parents being happy with each other again, and then the mentioning of his aunt and uncle, and Aunt Dorothy, his relatives, his cousins, and because when, now it turns to, Jordan and Stevie, because apparently Stevie was offended by this, and when she said, screw you, our dad didn't wish for us being boys, and all that. And then Sarah coming in, who wants creme brulee? And, Max attempting to get the letter back, it just gets out of hand. They wrestle each other, and Max, he can't take it anymore, and, you know, shouting at everyone, wishing that it would be back the way it was, but, you know, of course it's not happening. He gives up, and I hate Christmas, I hate all of you. And Aunt Dorothy, because the comments that she would make at times in this movie, yeah, this is where the funny stuff comes in one of them, and yeah, that stuff coming from Aunt Dorothy. Well, yeah, because we've got one of the funny talents we have in this, besides David Kushner, again, Conchita Farrell. Yep, because with the comedy, we have her and David, so yeah, but more than just those two, of course. And then even when, like, say, Tom, he tried to talk with his son Max on account that even though, because the extended family members can be a handful, they're still family and, you know, love each other and all that. It's not easy and it's complicated, but still, you know, it is what it is. So that kind of talk that Tom gives to his son, but, well, unfortunately, not really going that great. He's trying his best, but still. And even when Tom says to his son that there's still time to mail out that letter, but Max, in the end, he decides that, you know, screw this. He rips up the letter, and he tosses it out of his bedroom window, and the pieces of the letters, they go flying up into the air, and once that happens, well, that's when dark, stormy, wintry clouds come in, and everything changes. All around the neighborhood, the lights start to go off, and yeah, because the power going off, no heat, no water, nothing. And to think that this is happening just around 3 days until Christmas, and what is this family going to be doing and such, on account that things didn't go great on family dinner? Well, you know, we'll soon find out. And to still speed things up some, because, yeah, well, because what would happen next, and because that, yeah, they've had no power and all that. Well, two things that happen next. One, at one point they receive this mysterious package. Nobody ordered anything as far as we know, and it's in like a Christmas sack, like, you know, as if it was like Santa's bag and such, his sack. And as for Beth, well, she's unable to reach out to her boyfriend because, you know, she sent a good chunk of texts, no response. Well, because on account there's no power and no signal, no internet. And Beth takes it upon herself to go and check on her boyfriend, and since it's, you know, that they only live each other a few blocks away, you know, like 4 miles away, 4 blocks, yeah. And, well, I mean, Tom, he's okay with this. Sarah, not so much, but, you know, Beth, you know, all she's going to be doing is just check on her boyfriend and such, and on account of the weather, and Sarah telling Beth to be back in 1 hour, etc. And, well, what would happen next? And, yeah, if it's obvious what's going to happen on account of Beth. Well, Beth, when she would make her way outside attempting to get to where her boyfriend lives, well, you know, things going wrong and hearing creepy, scary sounds, and even Beth noticing on top of a roof of a house, and yeah, this big mysterious figure that's on the roof and then hopping and jumping, and Beth is beyond terrified by this point, running for her life, calling out for help, and even when, like, she then hides under a truck, well, because, yeah, that figure is right beside that vehicle, and, you know, did the mysterious figure notice and discover where Beth is? Well, guess not, because, you know, he disappears. However, there is something under the vehicle where Beth is, a jack-in-the-box, and when that jack-in-the-box finishes its tune, it stops winding, well, something does unleash, and Beth screaming, and, well, Beth is the first victim in this movie to be killed with whatever was in that jack-in-the-box. Oh boy, obviously not a good sign. All right, Anchorman, we'll now come back to you because with what I've talked about so far, the whole family dinner thing, and when Max rips his letter, and, you know, soon Krampus emerges, dark stormy clouds, Beth going outside, and with what comes to Beth, just, yeah, well, what say you now?
I thought the family dinner scene, it kind of reminded me of the scene in Home Alone where the family fight and then it leads to something bigger.
That's a
Like,
good example.
yeah. And then I thought the power going out was crazy, and then like them having no Wi-Fi. And then when we do see a little bit of Krampus, it actually feels terrifying to look at, even though we barely see it for a second.
Yep. And any comment on what happens to Beth, the first victim of this movie?
I was wondering if Beth died or not, being chased by Krampus.
No, she did. I clearly stated that she did on account of the Jack-in-the-Box. Alright, anyways, so a little later, afterwards, what happens to poor Beth, and yeah, that's the last we see of Beth, for now. And actually very quickly, because again, I agree with you, Anchorman, that's a good example right there, because a good comparison, I should say, of, like, the dinner scene in Home Alone. Now, why didn't I think of that? I don't know, I just didn't. Good thing you did. Alright, but back on point, because after what happens to poor Beth, well, time goes by a little, and, well, Beth, of course, she hasn't returned, unbeknownst to her parents and everybody else, and because it's getting late, up to 7 p.m., that's right, even, like, say, at one point, Max, he did notice a snowman outside of their house, and, well, nobody built a snowman. Nobody was outside building a snowman, none of the family members, so where did that snowman come from? Who built this snowman on their property, I wonder? Well, not to mention that the other, like, people around the neighborhood, because there's no way they can get in touch with them or go to them, because, you know, a few of them out of town, like, you know, one that's in Hawaii, and this one family that wants nothing to do with that, with them on account of what happened with Max, a noodle incident. What, did it have to do with a bowl of noodles? Probably so, yeah. I even saw Max smirking a little. Okay. Do we even want to know? Maybe nothing too extreme. But anyways, so then, like, because again, with no sign of Beth back, but, you know, obviously they, you know, even like Tom, believing that, you know, she probably made it to her boyfriend's house and is safe and sound for now, but still, you know, just on account of what's been happening, it's getting very suspicious. Oh, and that's when Tom and Howard, they were taken upon themselves to go outside of the blizzarding storm, and even when, yeah, because it's clearly foggy and all that, you can't really see anything, and when even some of the characters, they comment on that, yeah, because it's unlike any other storm that, you know, even we would see. Anyways, so, yeah, again, Tom and Howard, they would go outside and take it upon themselves to go and look for and retrieve Beth, and, well, even, like, say, Tom at first, you know, he offered to borrow, you know, he asked if he can borrow Howard and Linda's car, then it would lead to Tom and Howard going together and such, while, you know, Max and the others, they stay behind, and also on account of looking over and, you know, taking care of Omi. Even Omi, she didn't want her son going out there, but, you know, on account that her granddaughter's out there, like, obviously, Daddy has to be there to, you know, go find and make sure his little girl's okay. So, yeah, again, Howard and Tom, they would go out, you know, in the vehicle, but that's when, yeah, what they would discover outside in the neighborhood, because they would notice one and two vehicles that, are damaged and such, including a snowplow that's still in good use. Nothing bad has happened to the snowplow. And when, like, yeah, one vehicle they noticed, like, the glass broke and all that, and there's no sign of Beth, and, well, it would lead to where, you know, they do come up to the house that, Beth's boyfriend lives in, Derek, and they can tell right away that, you know, something's off, because the house looks as though it's been damaged, which it has been. The doors broke and all that. And when they, you know, carefully go inside, call out for Beth, no answer. And even when, like, say, yeah, Tom noticed a photo of Beth and Derek, looks as though they went to a prom. Even, like, say, they would notice by the refrigerator doors, there was a gingerbread impaled onto the refrigerator door, okay? But little did they know what was going to happen next. But then things would just get, out of control, and then what would happen, and what both Tom and Howard would experience, crazy and scary stuff happening, like something under the snow charging at them, and when they tried to make a run for it, it almost got Howard, and even when they fired one of the guns, because, just so happens that Howard, in the back of his vehicle, had some weapons, just come prepared and all that, So yeah, and like firing a gunshot, even the family, they heard it from their house. And, yeah, because with whatever was underneath that snow, it tried to grab Howard. Luckily, Tom, saved Howard, and they get out of there. Yeah, this is serious business, and even say Howard, his leg is wounded, and, well, they try to keep it cool and such and not make it look like it was anything extreme and on account of the kids. And they have the kids go in the kitchen and be occupied, from Omi and Aunt Dorothy and such. While, Linda and Sarah, they attend and help Tom with Howard's injuries and all that. And when the adults are talking, and Howard and Tom, they would explain on what was going on and with what they experienced. But yeah. Okay, but coming back to you, Anchorman, because with what I've talked about so far now, well, what say you?
Was this the part where, like, the main dudes try to go outside and look for Beth?
Yes, as I explained, of course.
I thought the moment between the two were a good sequence where they're out in the snow. I thought how dangerous it was, and I thought the snowman, I like that scene where snowman randomly shows up.
Yep, definitely. Alright, but let's continue on, because, yeah. Because what would happen next? Well, Tom would recommend this, which would happen. They would board up the windows, and also on account that even Omi highly suggests that they keep the fire running in the fireplace, and for protection and such, because, Omi seems to know something, does she? I mean, even if anybody detected right away, maybe just like a minute or so later when we first saw Omi in this movie, that, well, something about her, a very interesting character, yeah, because with what we would discover later on with Omi, well, we'll find out. Because, yeah, again, they would board up the windows and all that, and keeping watch and such, both Tom and Howard. And, yeah, even, like, say, everybody together, staying together as a family, sleeping in the living room and all that, being tucked in, and keeping themselves occupied, some of them. And, even by this point, and on account of what the heck has just happened so far, they seem to be warming up together some, getting along properly. Yeah, because even, like, say, for a while, Howard was at times giving Tom a hard time and such, but on account with what happened, yeah, that did change and such, Howard's starting to appreciate Tom more, his brother-in-law, yeah. Also, even before that, because earlier, there was, like, a few nice moments, like, on account of, say, Sarah and Linda, the two sisters, because, Sarah, she had put up some decorations that had been kept from the family, like a Christmas photo of her and Linda at a young age, and the angel on top of the Christmas tree that came straight from Sarah and Linda's mom. And, Sarah explaining to her sister that this is what their mom would have wanted. And there's no doubt, of course. Yeah. You can only imagine if Sarah and Linda's mom were still around, how would she handle this situation? Yeah. Anyways, so, yeah, but again, with everyone in the living room staying together and such, and, well, Howard, lets Tom go to sleep and such. Howard will keep watch, but, a little later, we see that he fell asleep and such. And yet he said he would keep watch, yeah. And yeah, even by this point, as the camera pans around, everybody else has gone to bed, and, well, even like, say, when some of the kids, they were watching from a tablet, some Christmassy stuff, and even, Silent Night, Holy Night is being played, but once the tablet gets to 1 bar, 1% battery, it shuts off, and even the fire at the fireplace, it starts to go out. Yep. Once that happens, now some more crazy, scary stuff happens. Something from the chimney is lowered down, and, it rings, and it actually gets the attention of Howie Jr. He is the only one that wakes up, hearing the noise of some ringing and seeing a gingerbread and all that, a gingerbread man, something sweet to eat, and he takes the bait. Oh boy. And yeah, once he does so, he starts to get wrapped up, and everybody then wakes up. They're trying to hold on to Howie Jr. and not have him, like, be lifted up from the chimney place. Even when, Sarah, she's the first one to be holding on to Howie, and, she would notice the one gingerbread man that comes to life. Yeah. And sure enough, unfortunately, Howie Jr., he becomes the second victim to be gobbled up, and taken away by Krampus and his evil minions and such. Yep, that's the end of Howie Jr. Jeez. Alright, but coming back to you, Anchorman, because with what I've talked about so far, especially on account of what happens with Howie Jr., well, what say you this time?
I like it was crazy how the power goes out, even their electronics, when they think they got a moment to save themselves, it just stops working, and then now they have to survive, and then all the crazy horror stuff starts to happen where we get the alive gingerbread men, which I don't know if we got to yet, but
well, we see one gingerbread man first, that on account of what happens to Howie Jr. Yeah, that.
I thought it was funny the way it scares the dog and he just waddles away.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Anything else to say on account of what happens when, the second victim is Howie Jr. being taken up through the chimney?
I thought that was crazy.
No kidding. Alright, but continuing on, because, then what would happen next? And actually, because, then we would turn over to Omi, because with so much, pardon my French, crazy shit happening by this point, now that Howie Jr.'s lost, well, Omi basically tells everyone about Krampus, because apparently, she's well aware of Krampus's existence, and that, this is legit, it's real. And, on account that Omi speaks German, we finally hear her speak English. Yes, she now speaks English. I guess she's just more comfortable speaking German. Well, on account that, her grandchildren and her son, they understand her. They know what she's saying in German. So, even when they don't speak in German. Yeah, I like that. But this is where we get a backstory that comes straight from Omi. When she was a child, she was growing up in a village. Everybody in the village, these villagers, they stopped believing in the spirit of Christmas, being caring and giving and all that, and being rambunctious and cold-hearted people and such. But Omi was the only one that was still very caring and giving and such. And her parents were the same way too as everybody else. And then eventually Omi, she would feel the same way too, giving up on faith and hope and such. And when, at first she was hoping that, everything would be peaceful and everybody being happy, cheerful, caring, kindful, etc. But she would soon regret that. Yep, a wish that she would regret when, yes, same thing like we saw earlier. Cloudy, wintry storms approach, and we would then see Krampus having attacked the villagers. Then we would see from outside of Omi's bedroom, shadowy figures of Krampus attacking Omi's parents. However, Krampus did not kill Omi. Omi was spared as a reminder, and with all that has happened and such, a reminder about, what this came to be and such, yeah. And it was really cool that, in the backstory of Omi's, it was in, stop-motion styled animation. I'm pretty sure it was CG animation, but made to look like it was stop-motion. Yeah, it was pretty good. That was a nice little thing that that came from this movie. And even after, Omi explained her backstory and, that she did encounter and witness Krampus and that this is happening again, I was expecting, and yeah, sure enough, one of them does not believe in what Omi has said, that being Howard. Howard being a jerk and not believing in what Omi says, and taking it upon himself to go outside and to get back his son, and he gets a bit out of hand, and on account of him holding one of his guns, and, well, that things escalate when he steps outside, noticing some scary stuff, like things passing by and all that, and yeah, he's, he goes back inside and all that, just, yeah, learned your lesson right there very quickly, Howard. At least you weren't killed yet. All right, but coming back to you, Anchorman, with what I've talked about so far, Omi's backstory, the animation we got, etc. Well, what say you?
I like the animation to it. I wasn't expecting that in this movie. It kind of reminds me of, I don't know if I can compare it to Tim Burton, his style of animation whenever he does movies. That's what I'm kind of thinking of, Nightmare Before Christmas as animation.
I don't know, because, now that you say it, I genuinely don't know. That didn't occur to me when I first watched this movie, and when that origin story sequence came up, and, in animation and such. I guess in some ways, if we had, on account of, seeing, a shadowy figure of Krampus and all that, maybe. And, and what about you guys? I mean, if you feel the same way too, what Anchorman first said, and now he's got me thinking, but all right, but continuing on, because back on point. Well, what would happen next, and to still speed things up some, well, Tom would come up and lay out plans on what the family can do, and when he has a talk with Howard, Linda, and his wife Sarah, talking about that they can make their way to the still working snowplow and try to find their way through what's further in town and such, and if there's anybody that still has power and electricity and so on, that's the attempt and plan that maybe hopefully can happen, and even if it would. Meanwhile, because with what else is going on in the house, well, at one point, Jordan and Stevie, they at one point go upstairs, and, well, they at one point hear something, and they believe that it could be, say, Beth. They think that Beth might be alive, they think they're hearing her voice, but I think it's obvious that, it's a trap! You know the reference I just did. Anyways, because when they make their way to the attic, well, they don't come across Beth. In fact, once they step foot and they're told by this voice pretending to be Beth that come on up, hurry and such, then when we come back to the adults, well, we hear the screaming of Jordan and Stevie, and all four of them, they rush up to see what's happened. Howard, in this case, well, he would have an encounter in the kitchen with, yes, the gingerbread men. Now we've come up to that. So between that and with what's going on up in the attic, because with what Linda, Sarah, and Tom are witnessing and experiencing up in the attic, are more of Krampus's evil, demonic, crazy henchmen that, yeah, we see demonic toy versions of, yeah. We see the Jack-in-the-Box, of fully big Jack-in-the-Box, whom, by this point, the Jack-in-the-Box has gobbled up both of the girls, or just one of them? We don't know exactly just yet. But doesn't take too long for Tom. I hate getting the names mixed up. Tom doesn't take too long to open fire on the Jack-in-the-Box, but not just the Jack-in-the-Box. A demonic teddy bear emerges, an angel with wings, a doll with wings, up on top of the attic, lunges at Sarah. Then there's like a demonic Voltron-like robot toy that emerges, attacking Tom, and Linda would notice that one of her daughters is still alive, but is unconscious, and that being Stevie. Yeah, unfortunately, the Jack-in-the-Box with scary-looking teeth ate up poor Jordan. So, yep, that's the end of Jordan. She's the next victim to be killed. And back in the kitchen, because, yeah, Howard having a encounter with the evil gingerbread men that try to attack Howard. And is it me, or is it in some ways amusing? I mean, obviously, like, with what's going on in the movie on account of these scary demonic versions of these Christmassy characters and figures, yeah, but still, like, the fact that there's a good majority of comedy in this, I'm sure to anybody it's quite amusing just to see the gingerbread men go ballistic and all that, and attacking, poor Howard. Also, actually, some of those characters, like from the demonic toys, the gingerbread men, and elves, of course we have to have elves, they do have voices, like, Seth Green, Breen Burns, and Justin Roiland, the original voice of Rick and Morty, yeah, they do a couple voices. Yeah, each of them do voices. Seth voices Lumpy, Burns voices Dumpy, and Justin Roiland voices Clumpy. And while on that subject still, to go ahead and mention them, because, yeah, the elves, because there's a few of them that have voices. Well, just one. Rupert, I have trouble pronouncing that name. The elf, being voiced by Colin Dean. Okay. Yeah, because I did notice, I could tell that there were a few kid voices to those characters. Alright, but anyways, so yeah. So again, with what's going on with Howard on account of the gingerbread men and with what's happening in the attic, I mean, in the end, Howard would succeed on taking down the gingerbread men, opening fire on them, and when the last remaining gingerbread man is about to lunge at Howard and he's out of ammo, well, Rosie, the dog, stepping in. Good girl, because Rosie stepping in and munching the last remaining gingerbread man in the kitchen. Yeah, and like you said earlier, Anchorman, because at one point, yeah, Rosie did flee, and being a chicken and such, and Howard was not impressed on Rosie and just, retreating, not standing ground like a good dog should, but eventually Rosie, yeah, did help out, yeah. So good on Rosie for eating the last gingerbread man. And up in the attic, because, yeah, eventually the Jack-in-the-Box would flee, going through an air duct, and, then they would also manage to take down the Voltron-like robot, the doll with angel wings, as well as the teddy bear. You don't even say at one point, the teddy bear was lunged at, by stabbing right through one of his eyes. Ouch. Even, bleeding green. That's interesting. Alright, but, okay. Anchorman, we'll now come back to you, because with what I've now talked about so far, with what happens in the kitchen, with the gingerbread man attacking Howard, and with what all happens in the attic, those scary demonic toys, from the teddy bear, the doll with wings, and the robot Voltron-like toy, okay. What say you this time?
I thought the gingerbread men were interesting. I like how the dog ate it to save David Corner's life in this movie.
Indeed. And with what happens in the attic? What say you?
I thought the icicle scene was wild.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm sure, yeah, you feel the same way too, with on account of like the teddy bear, the robot toy, and all that. Just yeah. By the way, because like I don't know, I just now thought of this. Like, how do you feel about the violence and all that in this movie?
It reminds me of like other big, not really slasher movies, but like it reminds me of gory scenes and like maybe Violent Night or something.
Yeah, you know what? I was thinking of Violent Night, just by the way, because that being another Universal film that's Christmassy and with, you know, horror. Well, not horror, but slasher stuff to it, but different, of course, compared to this, of course, you know. Which, by the way, because yeah, I mean, both me and Anchorman, we reviewed that movie before. If you want to go check it out, but all right, but yeah, and as for me, because yeah, again, I just thought I'd mention it because yeah, I mean, the violence and such in Krampus. Well, I mean, obviously, they're very gruesome, but, I mean, not that much. I mean, honestly, like, another thing is that, there really wasn't that much swearing in this. Well, I mean, a little bit of the F-bomb, but not a lot, just, you know. But, like, yeah, obviously, because I was expecting that, yeah, the F-bomb was going to be popping in at some point, and yeah, it for sure did, and it was amusing. I almost forgot to mention that at one point, the demonic teddy bear toy does let out the Wilhelm scream, because if any of you have heard a high-pitched version of the Wilhelm scream, like, oh, like, yeah, that was pretty funny. Even if it's high-pitched, you would know instantly that's Wilhelm. Anyways, I mean, what about you, Anchorman? Did you happen to hear a high-pitched version of the Wilhelm scream in Krampus?
I think I did hear it.
Good. Yeah, because it's the same pitch I heard in other movies like Tropic Thunder and the first Transformers film, and I'm sure you guys know that too, but anyways. Well, even there have been a few times where the Wilhelm was kind of lowered pitched. Yeah, just a little like, oh, just, you know, I can't really demonstrate it, but you get my point. All right, back on point, because, yeah, after all that happened in the kitchen and up in the attic, well, because, yeah, and all that is remaining, well, I mean, yeah, because, you know, at one point, because with the commotion they hear upstairs, like up on the rooftop, and the scary noises we hear, and even at one point, Max helps Rosie go through a big air duct, because, you know, maybe Rosie can help take on what's upstairs, you know, up in the ceiling and all that, you know? Well, Rosie, I'm sure Rosie did her best, but yeah, it's obvious that poor Rosie, unfortunately, didn't make it. Even, yeah, Rosie could not stand a chance with what all was out there. Just, yeah. Then it would lead to the Jack in the Box. Yeah, gotta slow down. You know, falling from the ceiling, and yeah, the Jack in the Box emerging, more of the demonic toys emerging as well as elves. Even Nomi noticed that too, that elves were emerging and such. And the elves taking a few hostages. You know, even when, like, say, Aunt Dorothy, she actually stepped in and shot one of them. I think, yeah, the Jack in the Box and so on. But yeah, sure enough, the elves stepping in and taking Aunt Dorothy hostage. They take Chrissy, the little child, and Chrissy at times in this movie crying and such. And yeah, oh man, that poor child, because we can only imagine what they're gonna do to that child. Oh man. And yeah, again, they take Aunt Dorothy, and even when she delivers one more humorous line, and Howard, well, he won't stand for it anymore, especially on account when, you know, his little baby child is taken, you know, Chrissy, and he basically sacrifices himself, you know, by lunging on the Jack in the Box and such. And yeah, unfortunately, yeah, it's obvious that, you know, he too, you know, he's gonna die, which of course he does so, because sacrificing himself and giving himself in to try and, you know, save Chrissy, but yep, that of course didn't happen. And now all that's left and remaining is, of course, Tom, Sarah, Max, Stevie, and Linda and Omi. And by this point, and to speed things up some still, because yeah, they are going to leave the house house and make their way to the snowplow and from there on. However, that is with the exception of Omi. She will remain inside of the house and saying goodbye to, her family, her son, her grandson, and basically to keep Krampus occupied. Yeah. Even when Max then quickly realized this, that his grandmother was basically staying behind to confront and stop Krampus. Yeah, trying to help and such. And yeah, sure enough, we would then see Omi coming face-to-face with Krampus after all these years. And the body performance of Krampus being played by Luke Hawker. Yeah, and to mention some of the other cast members, like Der Clown being played by Brett Betty, like the other characters, I assume it's the other elves. I genuinely don't know, because Mark Acton, Amy Brighton, Trevor Baio, Ravi Narayan, Felicity Hamill, Sophie Gannon, Kelly Lilly, Mary and Claire Odell, Gareth Rock, and also Prechta the Cherub being played by Ivy George, Teddy Claw played by Teddy Claw, and even TikTok is credited. I presume, one of the toys, but yeah. And the Yule Goats being played by Pascal Ackerman, Sky Brotberg, and Jesse Carson. Yep. And those that, and also one of the other voices of the elves, and also voicing a gingerbread man, Adam MacArthur. Yep. And a bunch of others that are uncredited, like, some of the other elves being voiced by John Bailey and David W. Collins. And the voice of Krampus, because we do hear a bit of voice acting from Krampus, the voice of Krampus being voiced by Gideon Emery. Yeah. And a couple of Christmas shoppers and such that are uncredited, more dark elf, like, two more, Eric Lopez and Alexander Polinsky. Okay. All right, but back on point, because, again, by this point, Omi and Krampus come face-to-face with one another, and, Krampus, then, surprising Omi with vintage classic toys, and, ultimately, if it's obvious that, Omi gets killed by Krampus on account of those vintage toys. And can't forget to mention this because Omi had kept this for such a long time, and technically now being passed on to her grandson Max. This vintage, Christmas bell, and that even has the carvings and words of Krampus and all that. Yeah. Okay, but Anchorman, coming back to you with what I've talked about so far, with what else happens, Chrissy, Aunt Dorothy being killed, as well as Howard, and then when it comes to seeing Krampus up front and center, and with Omi, and, on account of Omi sacrificing herself, what say you this time?
I thought the grandma sacrificing herself was wild. It made sense for her to protect the family, if you know what I mean.
No, absolutely.
And then once we get to the hell area of the movie, that's where the movie becomes crazy.
Oh, I concur. Yeah. And how'd you feel about the look and design of Krampus's henchmen and all that from the demonic toys and the elves?
They look super creepy.
Yep, they definitely...
straight out of a nightmare.
Indeed. Yeah, for anybody who would have nightmares after viewing this movie and seeing those. All right, but anyways. And any quick comment from you also, because I did ask you this too, about what happens to each Aunt Dorothy, Chrissy, and Howard?
I assume the family died.
Well, of course they did. Yeah, they did. Of course they did. There's no way they were going to survive or anything like that. But speaking of which, because getting back on point, well, with what happens next, they now are out of the house, Omi, unfortunately, making that sacrifice, and with them on foot through the snow, and don't forget to mention that the snow, definitely, because when Howard and Tom were out there first, earlier, and then when everybody else is, the snow being very deep, well, especially on account of what's underneath the snow. And of course it emerges again. Yeah, because when it's back and it's, going through the snow underneath, and, well, Tom, unfortunately, he makes the ultimate sacrifice. He has his wife, his sister-in-law make a run for it, along with the last two remaining kids, Stevie, and most prominently Max. And it's very heartbreaking, especially by this point that, you know, at a certain point, yeah, things were looking good for both Tom and Sarah. In a way, like them falling in love with each other once again. Everything got all patched up and such. And on account of all that had happened, just, yeah. It's really sad. And, you know, even Tom, like, saying that he loves both his wife and his son. Yep. So, with having them make a run for it and trying to hold back, you know, with what's underneath the snow, firing the rounds, but, yeah, ultimately, it's out of bullets. And, yep, unfortunately, he gets pulled down in the snow. Then, when we come up to the last remaining four characters, now up to the snowplow. Well, unfortunately, Linda is next. She gets pulled in underneath the snow. Then Sarah is the next one, and is the last adult to be killed and pulled down in the snow. And it's only Stevie and Max that are left. They're the only two left. But unfortunately, Max, he's behind the wheel. He tries to get the snowplow started, but it's not working. It's not starting up. Then it would lead to the elves snatching and kidnapping Stevie and leaving Max behind, and Max now alone. And even when the movie fades to black, it's not over just yet. Because, well, again, and on account of what Omi said, and Max remembering that his grandmother saying that, you know, like her and now her grandson being the only one left as a reminder of all that happened. No peace or anything being resolved. None of that happening, and Krampus coming in to claim all that, just, yeah, and how Omi specifically put at it. But, you know, Max, he's not giving up, because he would then make his way to where Krampus and his minions are, and are preparing to throw Stevie, and as you brought up, Anchorman, in the pit of hell, basically. Jeez. You can even hear a little bit of the screaming and all that. Dark. And scary at the same time. And Max, you know, good on him, calling out to them, "Hey, asshole!" And, you know, wanting for this to go back to the way it was, and regretting the wish he made and such. You know, even when Krampus, he did at one point show Max the torn-up letter that he wrote. Yeah. And, you know, Max did at one point earlier feel bad about this, thinking that it was his fault, but his dad, Tom, assuring him it's not really his fault or anything like that. Because seriously, how was Max supposed to know that all this was going to happen? Seriously, it's true. Yeah. And Max, you know, saying that there is still a chance that everything can be restored and all that. And kind of seems like Krampus is kind of assuring and comforting Max, even like kind of wiping off a tear of his. But nope, not exactly, because, well, you know, they do proceed on throwing Stevie in the pits of hell. And when it seemed like at first that maybe Krampus would restore everything, not really. At least, that's not how it seems to what Max was expecting and us, the audience. Then Krampus, he would grab a hold of Max, and he would throw Max into the pits of hell too. And so so that's it? Like, nothing's gonna be restored? That's the end right there? Well, no, because then when it fades to white, Max finds himself back in his bedroom. But before we get to the ending, because, yeah, Anchorman will now come back to you, because up to the climax, the last remaining adults that get killed in the snow, Stevie and Max, the only two characters remaining, and then when it comes to, you know, Krampus and his minions about to throw Stevie in the pits of hell, Max wanting all of this to be back to normal and all that, yeah, with all that I've said, yeah. What say you this time?
I thought the ending was crazy, where they're basically in a world where they're having a peaceful Christmas, but really...
We haven't gotten there. No, Scott. No, Anchorman, we haven't gotten there yet. We haven't gotten there yet. No. No, I just said, like, with what happens in the climax with the pits of hell and all that, yeah, because what say you?
I thought the pits of hell was crazy looking. I thought, what could be down there?
I know, yeah. And anything else, and anything, because again, with what I asked, like, what happens to the last remaining adults, and again, on account of Max trying to have everything be restored.
I believe everyone died until
They did.
the main kid just wishes it all back.
Absolutely. All right, yeah, because that was a very, I will say, that was a very interesting way for how Krampus did that. Still doing it scary, and when, like, just proceeding on throwing both Stevie and Max into the pits of hell. But that was, I guess, Krampus's way to restoring everything that, with what happens. Yep, because Max, he finds himself back in his bedroom, he's awake, and downstairs, he sees a really nice, wonderful sight. Everybody together. Everybody's alive, from his parents, the extended family, his sister Beth. Everyone's okay. Even, say, the dog, Rosie, and Chrissy. That's great to see. Everybody having a good time, opening presents and all that. And, well, even Max, feeling the need to, and very sweetly, like, hugging each of his parents, because this is what he wanted, and yep, it's great to see. However, one gift that Max opens, it's the bell, and each of the family members, the characters, the look on their faces change, and we hear some, voices that we heard, like, from Omi and the others, and the words that are, printed on the bell, Krampus and all that. What's going on, and what's with, because, and then when they look outside through their window, and with the camera pulling out, well, what the heck? Like, they're in a snow globe, or are they really? Like, what does this mean? Like, this is very interesting. Like, what, Krampus has imprisoned them in a snow globe, and there's more snow globes that have houses in them, but, yeah. That was an interesting way for this movie to end off. Even, like, one more jump scare where all of the demonic toys and such, they emerge and they lunge at the camera, and then boom, the end credits roll. And the end credits were nice because, the cast members being shown, and also on account of Chrissy and Rosie, the baby actor, and, the dog actor too. Well, then, like, Christmas photos are shown as the credits roll. Like, that was a nice little treat there during the end credits. But yeah. Again, that was an interesting way for this movie to end off. And what happens to the family in the end? They're all alive and well, but it comes with a twist. Very, very interesting. All right. But now coming back to you, Anchorman, because, now, what say you on the ending to this movie?
I thought the ending was crazy.
Yeah, what a twist and such. And what do you make of it, Anchorman, with its ending and its twist and such?
It's crazy that the Krampus just basically has the whole family go through a lot of hell, and then it's revealed that they're all just stored away in his vault.
Apparently so.
A snow globe.
Yes, and a snow globe, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. That's crazy. Man, not exactly a good happy ending for the family right there. No doubt about it. Yep, but that's our movie. That's our horror, slasher, comedy, Christmassy film right there. Yep. Krampus, it's a very interesting Christmassy movie. May not be the top best, and definitely wouldn't be up there along with other really good Christmassy films, and are in that same territory as, say, Krampus, with some horror and slasher stuff to it. But overall, with what all me and Anchorman had to say about it, and with the first things we've had to say, and now that we round off things, and with our final thoughts and words, well, we don't think Krampus is that bad. And for me, because, I thought that this was okay for what it was. I quite enjoyed this. I was, getting into the suspenseful stuff, and with what all was happening, just like, wow, and crazy. And yet it was, entertaining. There were some funny moments, some heartwarming and touching moments. Yeah, everything that Krampus had to offer from beginning to end. The storyline, great cast of talents, from Toni Collette, Adam Scott, Consada Farrell, David Kochner, and the kid cast members, they were really good too, from MJ Anthony, Stefania Levy-Owen, and Maverick Flack, Queenie Samuel, Lola Owen, and the baby actress, Sage Hunfeld, Thor, the dog, who plays Rosie, everybody else that was a part of this movie, the creepiness, and with the horror and slasher stuff to it, and also, can't forget to mention, Krista Statler, who plays Omi, Michael Diodary's direction for this movie, the suspenseful stuff, some really good practical visuals and CG effects here and there, moments you didn't see coming, some jump scares, and the gruesome stuff that happens, and when it seems that all hope is lost, but in some ways it is restored, but with a twist. Very interesting. And if anybody did not see that coming the very first time you watched this movie, But just, and the music and score, pretty good too. The use of classic Christmas songs and such, the backstory of Omi, everything. And with the lore of Krampus in the movie of Krampus, very interesting and well put. Everything about 2015's Krampus, not bad. An okay Christmassy horror comedy film for what it is. And what say you, Anchorman? Your final thoughts and words on Krampus?
I thought it was an underrated Christmas movie. Wasn't my favorite, but it was definitely a memorable horror movie for sure. That explores a different side to the Christmas saga that's very dark, with a lot of dark twists and a lot of good actors in it. So
and I'm on and with all that you've now just said, I'm on the same page too. Wouldn't be not one of my favorites, but it's okay for what it is, and as you feel the same way too, Anchorman. Okay, so now with our final thoughts and words on Krampus and such done out of the way, how we rate and how many stars we give Krampus. Well, of course, we'll start with you, Anchorman. What say you?
Probably a 7 or a 6.
Yeah, that sounds about right. For me, I think I'm kind of going back and forth. What the heck? 7 out of 10 stars. So for you, it's between 6 and 7, but for me, 7 out of 10 stars. Because I quite enjoyed it, and it's okay for what it was. Nothing too bad, just, Okay, so again, 6 to, which is it, 6 or 7? Or is it in between for you, Anchorman?
In between.
All right, in between. In between for him, it's 6 and 7. For me, 7 out of 10 for Krampus. And what about you guys? What did you think of Krampus itself? When was the first time you watched this? If any of you did get to see this in theaters, if you remember the trailers and all that, or if you later watched it when it came out on DVD, Blu-ray, digital streaming, do you think it's not that bad? And if you're on the same page as both me and Anchorman, you think it's okay for what it is? And if it could be one of those Christmassy horror slasher films that you would watch around the holiday season. Favorite moments to come from Krampus? Did you get some good laughs? And any moment in this movie where you were like, oh my gosh, and, what you thought of, the lore of Krampus in this, the backstory from Omi, how were you on the characters, the family members, the Krampus's appearance, and with his minions, the practical and CG effects, again, moments you didn't see coming and just whoa, and on account of the twist ending, what'd you think of that? But just, overall, what do you think of Krampus itself with what all me and Anchorman had to say about Krampus, our review, and what did you think of our review of Krampus? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And so, guys, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. We hope you guys enjoyed our review of Krampus. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and we will see you guys in the next video / review. And, well, of course, continuing on with the Christmassy reviews, well, we go from one Christmassy horror flick to the next. And this one, we go back to the early 1970s. And I did mention it by name earlier. Because, yeah, this one horror Christmassy flick, that just so happened to be directed by the same guy who would go on to direct A Christmas Story. And in this Christmassy horror flick, one of the cast members just so happens to be future Lois Lane, Margot Kidder. But again, I did mention it by name. Do you know which horror Christmassy flick it is? I'm sure most of you do, but yeah, again, stay tuned for that. And Anchorman, it was great to have you be a part of this, joining me reviewing Krampus, and yeah, overall, thanks for being a part of this.
Well, thank you for having me.
Anytime, bro, anytime. And any last words from you? Say goodbye, happy holidays and such,
Bye.
All right, he says that, and for me, again, we thank you very much for watching. Take care. Happy anniversary to Krampus, and peace out.